Nigh.
Imagine waking up in a city where your entire social and economic survival depends on a daily pledge of allegiance.
Right, like your literal right to buy food or even keep your job.
Exactly. But this isn't just a simple salute. It is a pledge that your deepest, most fundamental convictions absolutely forbid you from making.
And, well, the real kicker here is that refusing this pledge doesn't just get you fired.
No, it gets you executed. So how long could you realistically hold out?
I mean, it's a psychological nightmare to even try to put yourself in that position. We like to imagine our core convictions are these unbreakable pillars.
Oh, for sure. We all want to be the hero.
Right. But when life or death pressure is applied to literally every single facet of your existence, minute by minute, day after day, well, that foundation gets tested in ways most of us will thankfully never experience.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking you back to the end of the 1st century, and we're unpacking a stack of really fascinating materials.
Yeah, we've got historical texts, archaeological notes, and some really deep biblical analyses.
Our mission today is to decode a specific, incredibly intense historical document. It's the message to the church in Smyrna, which you can find in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verses 8 through 11.
And we really want to understand the extreme environment this marginalized community was navigating.
Right, and figure out how this ancient text was designed to, actually comfort people who were staring down their own public executions.
To really grasp the gravity of this text, we have to look at the physical and political world these people were trapped in. We have to, walk the streets of 1st century Smyrna.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So during the reign of Emperor Domitian, Smyrna was arguably the most fiercely loyal ally of the Roman Empire in the entire region.
Wow, really? The most loyal?
Oh, absolutely. It was a crown jewel of Asia Minor, and it was famously known for its street of gold.
Yeah, I was reading the archaeological descriptions of this, and the Street of Gold wasn't just some wealthy residential neighborhood, right?
Oh, not at all.
It was a massive, monumental display of civic and religious pride. You have to picture this sweeping, beautifully paved boulevard just dotted with these imposing, magnificent pagan temples.
Right. You had massive sanctuaries dedicated to Zeus, Apollo, Cybele, Asclepios, Aphrodite.
The architecture alone was engineered to make the individual citizen feel very small.
Oh, completely. It was designed to make the Roman pantheon feel incredibly large and just invincible.
But presiding over all of that traditional pagan worship was something even more powerful.
Yes, the cult of the emperor. Smyrna was a massive hotbed for emperor worship.
Which is wild to think about today.
It is. In fact, Rome had actually rewarded the city for its intense loyalty way back in AD 26.
What did they give them?
They made Smyrna the site of a temple specifically dedicated to the Emperor Tiberius.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and having an imperial temple wasn't merely a religious honor, it was a massive economic engine for them.
So it tied the city's wealth and trade right back to Rome.
Exactly. Its political power was directly tied to its loyalty to the empire.
To put this in perspective for you, 1st century Smyrna wasn't just a city. It functioned like an inescapable, ancient company town.
That is a perfect analogy.
And the Roman Empire is the ultimate monopoly, right? They own the roads, they control the trade routes, they administer the law, they dictate the culture.
They hold all the cards.
But here is where I get hung up, and I really want you to clarify the underlying mechanism here. Because these early Christians actually submitted to the emperor's civil laws.
Yes, they did.
I mean, they paid their taxes, they didn't start armed uprisings, so why wasn't being a peaceful, tax-paying citizen enough?
That's the big question.
Why did refusing this one specific act, just dropping a pinch of incense on an altar to the emperor, automatically brand them as rebels who deserve the death penalty?
That is the pivotal question for understanding this entire era, and it really comes down to a fundamental concept in Roman life called the Pax Deorum.
Which translates to the peace of the gods.
Precisely. See, today we view religion as a deeply private matter and citizenship as a public matter. Ancient Rome completely fused the two together.
They didn't separate church and state at all.
Not even a little bit. They genuinely believed that the prosperity of the empire, the fertility of their crops, their victories in battle.
Everything.
Yeah, everything was a direct result of keeping the gods happy through constant unified sacrifices.
So they viewed it as a literal binding contract with the divine. Like, we give you sacrifices, you keep the sky from falling on our heads.
Exactly that. Worshipping the emperor and the Roman gods wasn't just about personal belief. It was the ultimate proof of your civic duty.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right. So if a group of people inside the city suddenly refused to participate in these sacrifices, the Romans didn't just view them as, like, eccentric or having a different theological opinion.
They view them as a literal physical threat.
Exactly. The logic was basically, your refusal to sacrifice is going to anger the gods, and the gods are going to punish our city with a plague or an earthquake because of you.
Wow. That makes a terrifying amount of sense from their perspective. It is not just about a bruised imperial ego.
No, not at all. To the average Roman in Smyrna, these Christians were public enemies endangering the safety of the whole community.
It was the ancient equivalent of treason.
It really was, especially under Emperor Domitian. He actually demanded to be addressed as Dominus et Deus.
Meaning Lord and God, right?
Yes. So participating in the imperial cult was absolutely mandatory. To refuse was to reject the Roman order. Rome tolerated a lot of strange local customs across its empire, but it absolutely did not tolerate rebellion.
So refusing the incense basically meant you were an enemy of the state.
Period.
Okay, so the threat is coming from the absolute top down. You have the full weight of the Roman military and legal system mandating this under threat of execution.
It's a massive pressure.
But what I find even more chilling, honestly, is that the danger wasn't just coming from the government. It was coming from their own neighbors.
Yeah, the local level was brutal.
Because they couldn't participate in this company town culture, these early Christians became profound social pariahs. They were completely locked out of the economy.
The economic isolation was staggering, and it functioned largely through the ancient trade guilds.
Right, the guilds.
In a city like Smyrna, if you were, say, a tent maker, a silversmith, or a baker, you had to belong to a trade guild just to do business.
But these guilds weren't just labor unions, were they?
No, they were deeply religious organizations. They each had a patron deity.
And I am guessing their mandatory meetings didn't just involve discussing the price of flour.
Not quite. Guild meetings involved feasts where the meat had been explicitly sacrificed to idols. And they often culminated in debauched pagan rituals.
Oh, wow. So a Christian could not, in good conscience, participate in that at all.
Right. But if you walk out of the guild feast, or you just refuse to join in the first place, you lose your livelihood.
You can't buy materials, and you can't sell your goods.
Exactly. You are economically starved out.
And on top of being starved out, the wider pagan culture literally slapped them with the label of atheists.
Yes, atheists.
Which I had to read twice when going through the sources, because being called an atheist by a society that literally worships dozens of gods is a wild piece of irony.
It sounds totally absurd to modern ears, but again, it makes perfect sense within that framework of the Pax Ziorum.
Right, the peace of the gods.
Yeah. To the Greeks and Romans, the gods were visible, tangible forces maintaining the universe. By completely rejecting this entire pantheon of established gods and worshiping a single invisible god, the Christians were viewed as godless.
So they were atheists who were tearing at the fabric of society.
That's exactly how they were seen.
Okay, so they are entirely cut off from the pagan majority. They can't work. Their neighbors view them as dangerous atheists, and the state literally wants to kill them.
It's incredibly bleak.
But then there's another layer of hostility that I found really surprising. Most first-century Christians were ethnically Jewish, right?
Yes, the vast majority.
So you would naturally assume they might find some safe harbor, or at least some quiet tolerance, within the wider Jewish community in Smyrna. But the exact opposite happened.
The friction there was intense, actually. The wider Jewish community in Smyrna viewed these early Christians with immense hostility.
Why is that?
Well, the Jewish community had a long-standing, hard-won legal exemption from the Romans. It allowed them to avoid sacrificing to the emperor because Rome, they respected the extreme antiquity of the Jewish faith.
Ah, okay. I see the political dynamic forming here.
Mm-hmm.
If the Romans start seeing Christians as just a weird, rebellious sect of Judaism, the Jewish community might lose their own hard-won protections.
Exactly. It was political self-preservation. The Jewish leaders in Smyrna were highly motivated to distance themselves from the Christians.
And this distancing frequently boiled over into actively reporting Christians to the Roman authorities, didn't it?
It did. And they would accuse them of horrific acts. Specifically, they accused them of cannibalism, rebellion, and incest.
Okay, I have to stop and push on this, because the cannibalism accusation sounds completely bizarre. I understand the political treason aspect. But how in the world did rumors of cannibalism start?
I know, it's a huge leap.
What is the actual mechanism behind that kind of psychological warfare?
Well, when you look at how rumors operate in highly polarized societies, they usually start by taking a misunderstood kernel of truth and twisting it into a weapon.
Okay, so what was the truth?
Because Christianity was illegal, these early believers had to gather in private, often before dawn. They were highly secretive because they were actively being hunted.
Right, that makes sense.
And in those private, closed-door gatherings, what did they do? They observed the Lord's Supper, they took bread and wine, and they spoke openly about consuming the body and blood of Christ.
Oh, that is a light bulb moment.
Right.
If you are an outsider and you already distrust this secretive group and you hear whispers from servants or passersby about them eating flesh and drinking blood behind closed doors, I mean, you don't politely ask them for a theological explanation.
Exactly, you weaponize the misunderstanding.
It is a classic, devastating dehumanization tactic.
And you also have to remember they called each other brother and sister, even between spouses.
Oh, which sparked the rumors of incest.
Exactly. If you can convince the Roman authorities and the general public that this splinter group isn't just misguided, but is actually practicing incest and cannibalism in the dark, well then executing them isn't just legally justified.
It becomes a moral imperative to protect the city.
Precisely.
Which brings up a really intense, loaded phrase in the text. Revelation 2 refers to these hostile accusers in Smyrna as a synagogue of Satan.
Yes, that's a very strong phrase.
Now, out of context, that sounds incredibly provocative. But looking at the theological breakdown in our sources, it has nothing to do with mindless name-calling. It is entirely about the functional outcome of their actions.
That's a crucial distinction to make. In the biblical and historical context, the word Satan isn't just a proper noun. It literally translates to the accuser or the adversary. Right. So when these individuals were falsely accusing innocent Christians of cannibalism and treason and actively reporting them to the Roman magistrates knowing it would result in their brutal execution,
they were functionally stepping into the role of the ultimate accuser.
yes,
By bearing false witness that leads to murder, they were literally doing the adversary's work.
that is exactly how the text frames it. It is a stark way of saying, look at the spiritual reality of what is happening here. Look at who is actually pulling the strings behind this persecution.
Wow. And to ground all of this in reality, we aren't just talking about abstract threats. There is a famous historical figure from this exact community named Polycarp, right?
Yes, Polycarp. He was the bishop of Smyrna, and he was ultimately martyred.
The accounts of his death are just chilling. He was an old man brought into the local arena, and the Roman proconsul actually pleaded with him, saying, just swear by the genius of Caesar, say away with the atheists, and I'll let you go.
And Polycarp's response is absolutely legendary.
What did he say?
He looked at the crowd of pagans in the stadium, pointed right at them, and said, away with the atheists.
Wow. Turning it right back on.
Yeah. And then he told the proconsul, 86 years have I served him, and he never did me any injury. How then can I blaspheme my king and my savior?
So he refused to burn the incense.
He refused, and he was burned at the stake.
So if you are a listener, putting yourself in the shoes of someone in Smyrna, your reality is a living nightmare. You know what happened to Polycarp? The government wants to kill you. Your neighbors think you are a dangerous cannibal. You are locked out of the local economy, and there's nowhere to hide.
It's total isolation.
Knowing all of that, how does this letter from Revelation actually respond to this overwhelming crisis?
It responds first by completely reframing who is actually in charge of the universe.
Yeah.
The opening line is deeply deliberate.
How does it start?
Christ introduces himself to this terrified community as the first and the last. That is a very specific Old Testament title from the book of Isaiah, and it is reserved exclusively for God.
So it immediately establishes absolute divine authority. Emperor Domitian might demand to be called Lord and God, and he might think he has the first and last word in Rome, but this text bypasses him entirely.
It completely dwarfs the empire, but then the text adds a phrase that is incredibly intimate and just surgically targeted for the people of Smyrna. He calls himself the one who is dead and has come to life.
That is profound. It is not just a high-minded theological statement. It is deep psychological armor.
Absolutely.
If I am sitting in a house church in Smyrna, and I know my arrest and execution are highly probable, hearing from someone who has literally been through a rigged trial, suffered state-sponsored execution, and physically conquered it, I mean, that changes my entire reality.
It's the ultimate proof of concept. It neutralizes the paradigm of fear.
Because he's already done it.
Right. The underlying message is, I have faced the exact threat you are facing right now. I know the way through death. I have broken it, and I am on the other side.
It is designed to guarantee eternal life to people who are very likely about to lose their physical lives. Which sets up what I think is the most striking paradox in this entire historical document. We have established that the Christians in Smyrna were locked out of the street of gold economy.
Right. They couldn't trade at all.
They were largely slaves, they were extremely poor, and those few who did own anything usually had their property confiscated by the state. They are at the absolute bottom of the socioeconomic ladder.
Penniless.
Yet the text says to them, I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich.
It is a stunning, total reversal of values.
How so?
Well, in the eyes of the city, and probably in their own eyes on their worst days, they were destitute losers. But the text insists that because they have maintained their integrity and their faith in the face of death, they possess a wealth that Rome cannot possibly confiscate.
It completely redefines what constitutes true capital.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that the text doesn't offer them a false toxic positivity. It doesn't say, hang in there, I'm going to magically dismantle the Roman Empire tomorrow and give you all your houses back.
No, it actually offers a very stark warning about the immediate future. It leans into the reality of their suffering. Right. It says, do not fear what you are about to suffer. It explicitly warns them that the devil is about to cast some of them into prison so that they will be tested.
And it gives them a specific time frame, right? It says they will have tribulation for 10 days.
Yes, 10 days.
Now, I want to clarify this for anyone listening, because when we hear 10 days, our modern brains immediately start a literal 240-hour countdown timer.
Naturally.
But Revelation is written in the apocalyptic genre. How does that literary style change the way we should read that number?
That is a vital point to understand. For a first-century listener, the apocalyptic genre was essentially underground resistance literature encoded in deep symbolism.
So it's like a code.
Exactly. If a Roman guard intercepted this letter, they would just see a confusing jumble of numbers and beasts. But the believers knew exactly how to decode it.
So it's not literal math.
No, in apocalyptic literature, numbers are rarely literal math. They are theological symbols.
So what does the symbol of 10 days communicate to a community waiting to be arrested?
In this context, the number 10 represents a complete finite period. It means the incoming attack is going to be incredibly intense, a thorough testing, but it is strictly limited.
So it won't last forever.
Right. It is brief, and more importantly, it has an expiration date decided by God, not by the Roman emperor. It is a way of saying, the storm that is about to hit you will be terrible, but it will pass.
That leads me to an observation that I find incredibly compelling. If you look at the other messages to the various churches in Revelation, almost all of them get some kind of reprimand.
Yeah, they do.
They get told, you are doing this well, but I have this issue with you. But Smyrna, along with Philadelphia, receives absolutely zero reprimand. It is 100% pure encouragement.
It's very unique in that regard.
Does this suggest that extreme, unrelenting pressure actually burns away all the trivial, superficial garbage and purifies a community's core values?
History certainly supports that conclusion. When your belief system costs you absolutely nothing, it is very easy to become complacent.
Oh, totally.
You get tangled up in internal politics or minor theological squabbles or just the comfort of everyday life. But when identifying with this community means you might lose your business, your freedom, or your head,
the superficiality evaporates instantly.
Exactly. There are no casual participants left in the room.
Right.
The pressure acts as a crucible. The people left gathering in secret in Smyrna weren't there for social networking or moral posturing. They were there because they believed, down to their bones, that this was the absolute truth.
And the text recognizes and honors that immense purity of devotion.
It really does.
So, after acknowledging the pressure, the poverty, and the impending prison time, we arrive at the outro of the message. The text concludes with a final, ultimate promise to this community.
And it masterfully contrasts the immediate physical threats of the Roman Empire with a massive long-term cosmic perspective.
Break down that conclusion for us.
The conclusion pairs a clear command with an astonishing promise. The command is unflinching. Be faithful until death.
So it does not promise they will escape the executioner's sword or the wild beasts in the arena.
Unfortunately, no. But the promise that follows is, and I will give you the crown of life.
The crown of life, meaning eternal life. which stands in direct contrast to the physical death they were about to face.
Yes. And it goes even further to solidify their courage. Christ promises that he who overcomes, which is a phrase meant to identify all true believers, will absolutely not be hurt by the second death.
Wait, let's actually break that down for a second, because understanding the difference between the first and second death is the entire key to their mindset here.
It is the whole key.
How does this framework operate?
So the first death is simply the physical end of biological life. And the text is brutally honest. These persecuted Christians in Smyrna might very well suffer that first death at the hands of the Romans. But the second death is an entirely different reality. The second death is defined theologically as eternal spiritual separation from God. Unending damnation.
Oh, I see the philosophical shift here. The logic is Rome can only inflict the first death.
Exactly. The absolute worst thing the emperor can do is touch your physical body.
That is the exact leverage point.
Yes. The promise guarantees that while the state can kill you once, it has absolutely no jurisdiction over your soul. The overcomer is guaranteed to escape the second, final death.
And when you deeply internalize that reality, it completely neutralizes Rome's ultimate weapon.
If you are no longer terrified of dying because you know the second death cannot touch you, the empire suddenly has zero leverage over you. You are completely free.
Which makes this ancient document a profound historical study in human resilience.
It really is.
It illustrates exactly what it takes to hold on to your core convictions when the entire architecture of society, from the laws to the economy to the paranoia of your own neighbors, is engineered to crush you.
You have to be anchored to a reality that is vastly larger than the empire you happen to be living in.
You do. For the Christians in Smyrna, that anchor was the unshakable conviction that the one they followed had already faced the worst the world could do and had defeated it. It allowed them to look past the arena and see the crown.
Exactly.
And that brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We started this deep dive by imagining what it would be like to have your survival tied to a pledge you couldn't make. But let's zoom out and look at the massive contrasts we've explored.
There are quite a few.
Smyrna was famous for its literal street of gold. It had massive economic clout, stunning, intimidating architecture, and deep systemic security provided by the greatest military empire on earth.
To the naked eye, Rome held all the power and all the wealth.
Yet this ancient text insists that the penniless, persecuted people hiding in the shadows, the people who had their property confiscated, who were locked out of the markets, and who were facing imminent execution, were the ones who were actually rich.
It's a total paradox.
It leaves you with a lingering question, one that echoes loudly into our own modern lives. In a world where we constantly equate our security with our bank accounts, our resumes, and our social standing, what does it actually mean to be truly rich in a society that might be valuing all the wrong things?
It is a question that completely flips the script on how we measure the worth and success of a human life.
It really does. Because when the street of gold inevitably cracks, maybe the only wealth that actually matters is the kind that can survive the fire.
Nigh.